Hey, coffee lids and hyper kids. Hey everybody, my name is John and welcome to ADITW, A Day in the Word, the internet's favorite Bible study. I got so many good things for you today, people. Like, so many. Please read Romans chapter 15, verses 1 through 7. So I don't know about yours, but in my Bible, this section is titled The Example of Christ. And clearly this section, as well as this chapter, as well as this entire book, as well as the entire New Testament, is calling us as Christians to follow and live by the example of Christ, to be imitators of God, to shine His light, to be the hands and feet. But have you ever actually considered what that looks like? Have you ever thought of what it would actually look like to follow a guy who gave up his throne in heaven to come live down on this earth, to live in poverty, to serve those on the edges, to live a perfect life, and then give himself up to die on a cross for the sins of all mankind? Whoa. How are we supposed to follow that example? How are we ever supposed to get to a place of such grit, such resolve, such sacrificial love? And today, I want to answer that question for us. But first, I want to talk about Bible study. And the two are completely unrelated. Directly in the middle of imploring his readers to follow the example of Christ, Paul throws in this seemingly random verse about the importance of Scripture. In verse 4, he writes, "For whatever was written in former days was written for our instruction, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the Scripture, we might have hope." And so today, I want to make some observations based on this verse about the importance and purpose of Scripture in our lives. And through these observations, it is my hope that you will begin to see just how important an understanding of the Scripture or Bible study is to the Christian life, especially if we want to imitate Christ. So, according to this verse, what is the purpose of Scripture? First and foremost, Scripture exists for instruction. And it's really important that we don't skip over this one. I think that most of us would admit that we want to be encouraged by the Bible. We want to be lifted up and inspired and be able to retweet encouraging verses. We want to be encouraged by Scripture. But many of us aren't too interested in being instructed by it. We want the Bible to be a cheerleader, but never a coach. Go you! The problem with this approach is that in order to be properly encouraged by the Scriptures, we first have to allow ourselves to be instructed by them. And that's the next thing that this verse talks about. The Scriptures provide for us encouragement and endurance. As we talked about before, living by the example of Christ is not an easy path to walk all the time. There will be difficult moments. Jesus himself told us that we will face persecution, and studying the Bible will provide us with the godly perspective that not only encourages us that these light and momentary troubles are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us, but it will also help us to endure, because we know that these hard times will not last forever. Just as Christ endured unbelievable suffering on the cross, we too will be able to endure our suffering because we know what it is achieving for God's kingdom. And lastly, study of the Scripture provides us with hope. The Bible tells us that on the other side of that perseverance, there is hope of something greater. Time and time again, the Scriptures tell us that this hope of a brighter day, that is what encourages us in our walk. In short, hope is what encourages us that our endurance is worth it. The calling of the Christian life is to live by the example of Christ. And we get to that place through instruction, encouragement, endurance, and hope. And the source, the place where we find all of those things that we need to live by that example, That's the scriptures. This is the Bible making a case for itself as an integral part of our spiritual journey. This is the Bible being like, hey, you looking for the best resource for cultivating Christ-likeness? I think I know a guy. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching this episode of ADITW. I hope it encouraged you to dig more deeply into the scriptures. I know it's continuing to encourage me. If you all are not yet, I really want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel, as well as go on over to Instagram and give me a follow there at Jon Jorgenson. That is all I have for you this week. Tune in next week for our final installment of this Romans series. I will see you then. I love you all. Keep being awesome.